This is Greece. Once the cradle of Western civilization, today it's becoming a graveyard for dreams. In 2024, the average Greek earned just 17,000 euros per year, less than half the EU average, while paying European prices for everything. Food costs jumped 28.5% in just 3 years. Energy bills that once cost 100 euros now demand 200 euros. Healthcare? 11.6% of Greeks simply can't access the medical care they need. Transportation? A train system so decrepit it killed 57 young students in a preventable crash. But here's the truly devastating part. While Greece bleeds its young and talented, over 1 million working-age Greeks have fled since 2010. It's simultaneously being overwhelmed by 118,000 new immigrants it cannot integrate, house, or employ effectively. This is the story of how a European nation is experiencing complete societal collapse in real time. Let's start with the most basic question. Can Greeks afford to live in Greece? The answer is increasingly no. The average Greek worker earns 17,000 euros annually. That's the third lowest in the entire European Union, just barely above Hungary and Bulgaria. But unlike Bulgaria, Greeks pay Western European prices. In 2022, Greece's inflation hit 9.6%, among the highest in the Eurozone. Food inflation reached a crushing 13%. Even when inflation cooled, the damage was done. Between 2021 and 2024, food prices cumulatively jumped 28.5%. A VAT rate of 24%, one of Europe's highest, makes everything from bread to baby formula punishingly expensive. Here's what this means in real terms. The average Greek household now spends 1,685 euros per month just to survive. But the median wage after taxes? Just 1,154 euros. The math simply doesn't work. Real disposable income actually declined by 2.2% in early 2024, even as the government claimed economic recovery. Greeks are earning more euros but can afford less life. But poverty is just the beginning. When Greeks get sick, they face a healthcare system in terminal decline. Public health spending has fallen to just 5% of GDP, well below the Eurozone average of 7.5%. The system is missing 6,000 doctors and thousands of nurses. Why? Because between 2010 and 2020, almost 20,000 Greek doctors fled the country for better pay and working conditions abroad. The numbers are damning. In 2009, Greece had 54,700 hospital beds. By 2019, only 44,800 remained. Public funding for healthcare actually decreased from 61.9% to 60.9% of total health spending, forcing more Greeks to pay out of pocket for private care they can't afford. The result? 11.6% of Greeks couldn't access needed healthcare in 2023, nearly double the rate from just 3 years earlier. In rural areas, the situation is catastrophic. Some islands and villages have no resident doctor at all, just a single nurse to serve entire communities. When COVID hit, Greece had among the highest fatality rates in Europe, partly because its hollowed-out hospital system simply couldn't cope. The decay extends to every aspect of public life. Greece's infrastructure tells a story of criminal neglect that turned deadly on February 28, 2023. The Tempe train crash that killed 57 people, mostly university students returning from holiday, wasn't an accident. It was murder by negligence. Investigations revealed a horror show. The signaling systems on the Athens-Thessaloniki mainline hadn't worked for years. Train operators were using phones and radios to coordinate. 19th century methods in the 21st century. The system was so broken that 2 trains were sent speeding toward each other on the same track with no automatic safety systems to prevent disaster. But trains are just one symptom. Greece has the lowest rate of fiber optic internet penetration in the OECD, just 8.3% compared to an average of 42.5%. Connection performance actually declined by 35% between 2023 and 2024. Public transport is so unreliable that passenger demand has been falling for over a decade. Greeks travel the shortest average distance by rail of any EU country, just 65 kilometers per inhabitant, because the system barely functions. Faced with poverty wages, crumbling services, and no future, Greeks are voting with their feet. Between 2010 and 2022, an astounding 1.08 million working-age Greeks emigrated. Nearly 60% were between 25 and 44. Doctors, engineers, scientists, the very people Greece desperately needs to rebuild. The brain drain accelerated even after the supposed recovery. In 2022 alone, 33,000 Greeks left for OECD countries, an 18% increase from the previous year. They flee to Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, anywhere offering what Greece cannot: opportunity, dignity, a future. Youth unemployment, while improved from its 28% peak, still sits at 16.3%. But even those with jobs face impossible choices. The average Greek doesn't leave their parents' home until age 35. Not by choice, by necessity. Young people spend 31.1% of their income on housing, triple the EU average. Faced with these economics, Greece's birth rate has collapsed to 1.3 children per woman. The country is literally dying. Meanwhile, those who remain face a darkening reality. In 2022, 28.9% of Greeks were at risk of poverty or social exclusion, nearly double the EU average. Material deprivation affected 27% of the population. 1 in 3 Greeks can't afford unexpected expenses or a one-week vacation. Many skip heating in winter or protein in their diet simply to survive. While Greeks flee, others arrive seeking salvation, only to find a different kind of hell. In 2023, 46,095 migrants arrived in Greece, a 169% increase from the previous year. By 2024, arrivals exceeded 56,000. These aren't tourists. They're refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, Egypt, fleeing war and poverty. But Greece's dysfunctional system turns potential into waste. The country has the highest skill waste rate in Europe. 70% of non-EU citizens with university degrees work in jobs that don't require any degree at all. Syrian engineers pick olives, Afghan doctors clean hotels. The system simply cannot process or utilize the human capital arriving at its shores. For those granted asylum, the cruelty deepens. They have just 30 days to leave reception facilities, thrown into a housing market where even middle-class Greeks are drowning. The EU-funded housing programs shut down by 2023. The result is so dire that European courts have banned sending refugees back to Greece, ruling the conditions violate human rights. By late 2024, nearly 74,000 people had applied for asylum, the highest since 2019. But Greece managed just 5,280 deportations against 37,049 new arrivals. The mathematics of impossibility pile up. Too many people, too few resources, no plan. Every aspect of life has become unaffordable. Housing costs claim 35% of the average Greek's disposable income, the highest rate in Europe. Nearly half of all households, 47.3%, struggled to pay rent, mortgages, or utilities in 2023, up catastrophically from 29.1% the year before. Electricity and heating bills spiked during energy crises. Food inflation may have cooled, but prices remain 28.5% higher than 3 years ago. A family of 4 in Athens needs 2,777 euros monthly just for basics, excluding rent. But the minimum wage? Just 830 euros per month. The Golden Visa program poured 4.3 billion euros of foreign money into real estate, driving prices up 71.4% since 2017. Airbnb converted 125,000 homes into tourist rentals. In Athens alone, 11,267 properties that once housed families now serve vacationers. The result? 28.5% of Greeks face severe housing cost overburden, spending over 40% of income on shelter. For youth, it's even worse at 31.1%. On February 28, 2025, 2 years after the Tempe rail disaster, over 1 million Greeks took to the streets. Their slogan, "We can't breathe," captured more than grief. It voiced the suffocation of an entire society. This is what systemic collapse looks like. When your hospitals can't heal, when your trains kill students through negligence, when your youth flee by the hundreds of thousands, when working full-time still means choosing between food and rent, when refugees arrive seeking hope but find only deeper despair. Greece spent billions on electricity subsidies in 2022-23, raised the minimum wage by 9.4%, launched housing programs for 20,000 people. But these are bandages on a hemorrhaging patient. When 2.7 million Greeks risk poverty, when 500,000 face homelessness, when basic services fail daily, incremental reforms mean nothing. The numbers paint a portrait of societal death. Greece hasn't just failed its citizens, it's become actively hostile to human life. The birthplace of democracy has become a cautionary tale of what happens when austerity goes too far, when tourism matters more than citizens, when EU membership means bailouts for banks but not for people. As protesters filled every major square, their message was clear: this isn't living, it's slow-motion dying. And unless something dramatically changes, the question isn't whether Greece can recover, it's whether there will be any Greeks left to witness it. The oracle at Delphi once commanded, "Know thyself." Modern Greece must face its truth. It has become impossible to live with dignity in the land that invented the very concept. And that perhaps is the greatest Greek tragedy of all.